She slammed my cabin door so hard it rattled the windows. "Get out of here right now!" Karen barked, storming inside like she owned the place. I was sitting quietly by the fire, sipping my coffee, when she waved a stack of papers in my face. "This is HOA property, and you're trespassing." Her voice echoed through the wooden walls. I didn't even move, because right across from me, sitting in my chair, was a man in a dark navy suit. He didn't flinch either. Karen didn't notice him at first, too busy shouting about rules and fines. "If you don't leave, I'm calling the cops, and trust me, they'll drag you out," she screamed. I set my cup down slowly, looked at her, and said, "You might want to be careful who you're talking to." Karen spun around, finally, noticing the man in the suit. Her face froze for a second, but then she forced a fake laugh. "Oh, I didn't see you there. Don't worry, sir. I'm just handling some community business. This squatter doesn't belong here." She jabbed, her finger toward me like I was some criminal. The man leaned back in his chair, eyes calm but sharp. "Is that so?" he said in a slow, steady voice. Karen crossed her arms, puffing herself up. "Yes, I'm on the HOA board. This cabin is restricted property, and he has no right to stay." I could see the man's lips curve just slightly, like he already knew the punchline of a joke. "Restricted property?" he repeated, almost amused. Karen nodded quickly, thinking she was winning. "Exactly! I've already called the sheriff, so if you don't escort him out, I will." Her voice cracked a little, but she covered it with a smug smile. The man finally stood up, adjusting his jacket. He looked straight at Karen and said, "Interesting, because I came here today to meet the legal owner of this land." Karen blinked, her mouth opening and closing like she'd lost her words. I leaned forward, meeting her glare. That would be me. Her face turned pale, but she tried to recover. No, you're lying. This is HOA territory." She barked louder, but her voice shook. That's when the man took out his wallet and placed a badge on the table. Karen's eyes widened as she read the words, State Attorney General. Karen's jaw dropped, but she still wouldn't back down. That can't be real," she stammered, pointing at the badge with a trembling finger. "You're just bluffing to protect him. This cabin falls under HOA rules, and I'm in charge here." The Attorney General tilted his head, studying her like she was some strange puzzle. "Ma'am," he said calmly, "HOA rules stop where state law begins. And right now, you're trespassing." Her voice shot up, shrill and desperate. "No, you don't understand. This cabin should have been ours. We filed papers, She cut herself off quickly, realizing she had said too much. My chest tightened, because in that one slip she revealed more than she wanted. I leaned back, arms folded. "Filed papers? Or forged them?" I asked, keeping my tone low but sharp. Karen's eyes flickered with panic, and for the first time, her confidence cracked wide open. The Attorney General stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You know impersonating ownership of state land is a felony, right?" The silence in the cabin was thick enough to choke on. Karen's face twisted, her eyes darting toward the door like she was calculating an escape. And then she smirked. That smug, dangerous smirk. "You think you've trapped me? Wait until the sheriff gets here. He works with us. You'll see." The Attorney General raised an eyebrow, not shaken at all. "Us?" he repeated slowly, as if pulling a thread. That would unravel everything. That single word, us, hung in the air like a ticking bomb. Before I could even react, headlights cut through the cabin windows. Tires screeched outside, and a loud knock rattled the wooden door. Karen's grin widened like she had just won. "Told you," she whispered, almost gleeful. "My people are here." The Attorney General gave me a quick glance, calm but sharp, like he already knew what was coming. When the door opened, 2 men in sheriff uniforms stepped in, but something about them felt off. Their badges looked cheap, their belts mismatched, and the way they carried themselves screamed anything but law enforcement. Karen clapped her hands together. "Arrest him!" she ordered, pointing straight at me. "He's trespassing, and this man here is helping him. He's a fraud!" One of the fake deputies stepped forward, his hand resting on a pistol. "Ma'am, we'll handle this." But his accent slipped, and I caught a word that no real deputy would use in this county. The Attorney General didn't flinch. Instead, he pulled out his phone, pressed a button, and set it face up on the table. A red light blinked. It was recording. "Gentlemen," he said firmly, "before you make the biggest mistake of your lives, state your badge numbers for the record." The two men froze. Karen's eyes darted nervously between them and us. "Well," she snapped, "do it! Arrest them!" But neither man spoke. The silence exposed them louder than any confession. And then the Attorney General leaned in, his voice sharp as glass. "Impersonating law enforcement is punishable by up to 5 years in prison. Care to dig yourself deeper?" The fake deputies' hands twitched, but the fear in their eyes told me everything. I wasn't the one cornered anymore. Karen's confidence shattered in seconds. She lunged toward the fake deputies, whispering harshly, "Do something! Don't just stand there!" But her panic only made things worse. One of the men backed away toward the door, mumbling, "This wasn't part of the deal." The Attorney General rose from his chair, his calm now replaced with steel. "Enough games," he said, pulling out a folder from his leather case. He dropped it on the table and pages spilled out, deeds, contracts, legal documents. "This entire lake, the cabins, and the land surrounding it belong to him." He pointed directly at me. Karen's face drained of color. "No, that's impossible," she stammered. "This land belongs to the association. I run it." I finally spoke, my voice steady but sharp. "No, Karen, you run your mouth, that's all." The Attorney General placed one final paper on top, a court order with a gold seal. "And as of last month, Karen, there's an active investigation into your so-called HOA, fraud, illegal fines, and misuse of community funds." The cabin went silent except for the crackle of the fireplace. Karen's jaw trembled, but she still tried one last move. "These are lies! I'll call the real sheriff!" "Don't bother," the Attorney General cut in, almost smiling. "He's already on his way, and unlike your friends here, he wears a real badge." The sound of sirens in the distance made Karen's hands shake. For the first time, she looked smaller than the room itself. Red and blue lights flashed across the cabin walls as the real sheriff's truck pulled up. Heavy boots hit the porch, and the door swung wide open. Sheriff Dalton, a broad man with a commanding voice, stepped in. His eyes locked on Karen immediately. "Karen Miller," he said firmly, "we've been looking for you." Her face went pale, but she forced a laugh. "Sheriff, thank God you're here. Arrest him. He broke into my cabin and—" Dalton raised a hand. "That's enough. This isn't your cabin and you know it. We've got a stack of complaints from residents you've been extorting. Fake fines, illegal threats, even impersonating law enforcement." The fake deputies tried to slip away, but the Attorney General pointed at them. "Not so fast. They're part of her scam." Within seconds, the sheriff's men had them in cuffs. Karen's shrill voice filled the room as she fought against the inevitable. "You can't do this to me. I run this community. Without me, it falls apart." I stepped closer, looking her straight in the eye. "No, Karen. Without you, people finally get to live in peace." Dalton read her rights, each word echoing louder than her protests. The Attorney General quietly closed his folder, giving me a nod of respect. Karen was dragged out of the cabin, still screaming promises of revenge, but outside, the neighbors who had gathered began cheering. They had finally seen their tormentor exposed in front of everyone. For the first time in months, the air around the lake felt free. The next morning, The story spread like wildfire. News vans lined the edge of the lake and reporters swarmed to get footage of Karen being escorted into the county courthouse in handcuffs. Neighbors who had once been terrified of her finally stepped forward one after another, telling the cameras how she had bullied them. "She fined me $500 for leaving my Christmas lights up 2 days too long," one man said. "She threatened to take my house if I didn't pay her in cash," a single mom added. Each testimony hit harder, and the crowd's anger turned into relief as the truth unraveled. The Attorney General himself spoke briefly on the courthouse steps. "This woman has been running a fraudulent HOA scheme for years. Today that ends." Karen, still in cuffs, tried to twist the story. "They're lying. I own this whole community," she shouted. But the evidence was overwhelming. Fake documents, bank accounts, even recordings of her threatening families were all laid out for everyone to see. I stood near the back, hands in my pockets, watching the crowd take their power back. Neighbors who barely knew me came up to shake my hand. "Thank you," one elderly veteran said. "Without you standing up, none of us would have had the courage." And right there, in front of the cameras, one of Karen's former allies revealed the final blow. She had been collecting money for years and funneling it into her personal accounts, not the community. The gasps from the crowd turned into applause as Karen's face crumbled. For the first time, she wasn't feared. She was pitied. The judge's gavel came down hard, echoing through the courtroom. Karen was sentenced to prison for fraud, harassment, and impersonating an officer. The crowd that had once lived in fear of her let out a sigh of relief that felt like freedom itself. Outside the courthouse, the Attorney General shook my hand firmly. "You didn't just protect your land. You protected every family here. This is what standing up for your rights looks like." His words carried the weight of something bigger than just my own fight. As I drove back to my lake cabin, the sun setting over the water, I saw neighbors waving from their porches. Kids were playing outside again without their parents worrying about Karen showing up with fake threats. The whole community felt lighter, freer. I walked into my cabin, sat by the fireplace, and finally let the silence sink in. For months, Karen had screamed, threatened, and tried to control everything. But in the end, her greed and lies destroyed her. I thought about the veterans buried in the small cemetery by the lake, men and women who fought so we could live free. My voice was low but steady as I said the words that had carried me through it all. I didn't fight for this land just to let someone like her take it away. Not now. Not ever. And for the first time in a long time, it felt like justice wasn't just done. It was alive.